All right, so for those of you who have not heard, my name is Erica Schuster and I work for Curiosity Box. I am their educator and content curator for the box that you have received and I have sitting here beside me. So that you know, the post office does not like it at all when we ship soil or seeds. That's why we weren't able to include the soil or seeds into your box. So, there are lots of other ways. We've suggested grabbing soil out of your garden. Any seeds that you have lying around, flower seeds, would make a really cool effect for today's project. You can also come back, revisit this, and I will be touching on another craft that's inside of our box a little bit later today. So, what we are going to make is Grassy Gus. Now, my 1-year-old got a hold of him, and so his antennas are a little bit bent, as are his legs, but she really liked the feel of him. So I made this one about 2 weeks ago so that I would have a demonstration for you to see. And I'll explain a little bit more of what you can do. So for today's project, like we've said, you'll need soil and seeds. I'm using grass seed today. In your Curiosity Box, you will find a little package like this. It contains some pipe cleaners, some thread, and most importantly, a nylon stocking. So I'm just gonna quick cut this open and put the contents in front of me here. All right. So I obviously do not have a buddy with me, but I do have a cup. I brought a cup from home today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch open the nylon stocking and place it into the cup so that it wraps kind of around the cup on the outside, and I can kind of stick my whole hand inside like that. Okay, if that makes sense. I'm just going to set it aside for a second. Now, I found this potting soil in my garage. I have to admit, Grassy Gus is the only time I use soil, so I'm very thrilled to have soil actually in my house for this activity today. And I'm just going to get a little bit dirty and put some soil into a mixing bowl. Okay. Now you can use as much soil as you want or as little. The more soil you use, the bigger your caterpillar will be. So I have filled my mixing bowl maybe just a little bit under halfway, maybe a third of the way, or somewhere between a quarter and a third of the way. Before I go any further, I'm just going to say, if you don't want to make a caterpillar, I know there's some older children joining us, so if you don't want to make a caterpillar like I have made, you can make a grass head instead. So I'm going to take my seeds, and I'm going to mix them inside with my soil in the mixing bowl. If you're going to choose to make the head instead, I would recommend not mixing the seeds, because then you're going to have seed sprouts of flowers or grass or whatever you're choosing to plant coming out everywhere. So I'm just going to put a couple of spoonfuls of seeds in here. Maybe one more. All right. So I don't know, can you see? I've added a bunch of seeds to my soil. And I'm going to set that aside. And the fun part, I'm going to mix it all together. Because for caterpillars, a lot of caterpillars are very fuzzy. And as the grass grows on my caterpillar, it's going to come out everywhere this way. You can see it's coming out on his sides and even on the bottom there. All right, so I'm just going to smush up some of these bigger chunks of soil. Okay, so my seeds and soil is nicely mixed. And very carefully, I'm going to spoon it into the nylon stocking.
We just had a question from a camper. Do you have like an amount of seeds you recommend, or like how many scoops?
I did 3 spoonfuls of grass seed, but if you're using like a package of seeds, I would use half the package. You can even use the whole package. There's no specific amount needed.
Great, thank you.
All right. If you have a partner at home and you don't want to use a cup, you can also have them hold open your stocking. Because it's tricky when you're doing it by yourself. There. All right. I'm just going to put that away. And I'm going to take my stocking out. Okay, so I learned the hard way. My very first time I did this, I tied it off first so that the soil wouldn't fall out. And I tied it off right where the soil ended. Big mistake. So what I'm going to tell you to do is hold the end with one hand and just gently shake it until you kind of get like a log. Okay? Now if you're doing a head, put the seeds in first, then add the soil on top of the seeds.
Hey Erica, if the kids have bird seed, could they use that because it has sunflower seeds and other things in it? Maybe it would sprout up some things?
Yeah, it might work. So what I'm going to do is, I've just made a ball at the end of the stocking, and that's going to be his head. So I've used my fingers, pinched it off, and I gave it a little twist. I'm just going to set it down. I have not yet tied the end, so you got to be careful with that. Now using some thread or string, you want to tie a knot so that the head doesn't, I'm just going to lift it up. Okay, so I'm using a thread. I'm going around where I want his head to be, and I'm just going to tie it off. So if you're going to add seeds a little bit later, I would recommend only doing 1 knot. I am doing double knots. Okay, so now you have a head and a really long body. Now the trick is to figure out how many joints you want your caterpillar to have. On the one I did a couple of weeks ago, I have 1, 2, 3 joints. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to just tie them off. So grabbing some string. And tying them off. I have to admit, caterpillars are probably one of my absolute favorite bugs. Only because they turn into butterflies. And I absolutely adore butterflies. I think they have the most beautiful colors. I have some milkweed growing in my backyard for the monarch butterflies even. Okay, so I have tied off. Yes?
some campers are wondering if they have to do a caterpillar.
No, you can do a grass head. You can turn it into any animal or anything really that you want.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, so I have created my caterpillar. And now that I've got these sections tied off, I'm actually going to tie off the end of my nylon stocking, and I'm just going to roll it around my fingers, shove it through just like you would tie a balloon closed. My fingers got stuck. All right, so now you have kind of blobs. Okay. So I understand that there are some older campers out with us today. Am I correct? Like some 10-year-olds-ish or so?
Yep. The camp is for kids aged 6 to 12.
Awesome. So
got like a big variety.
That's awesome. I'm gonna sidetrack for a second and talk to the older campers on how you can kind of step up your project. So what I have is just a needle, like a sewing needle, and some thread. And I'm going to create 3D eyes and nose. Now I'm not going to keep them in mine, but you can definitely keep them in yours. I'm just going to show you how to do them. So I don't know, can you see that? I've threaded my needle. And I'm just tying a knot in the end. Now, do you need to use needle and thread? No, you can still use the yarn that's in your box already. It's just with what I'm about to do, you're not going to see the needle and thread how I'm doing it. So I'm using his head. On his head, I'm going to kind of pull out a little section, and I'm going to stick my needle right through it. Hopefully without poking myself. And then I'm going to go from the sides, and I'm going to kind of work in a decagon pattern.
And what's a decagon?
A decagon is a 10-sided shape. So think of a stop sign, but with a lot more sides.
Cool, thank you.
So you can see that there is an eyeball starting to pop out from his head. So if you're doing a Grassy Gus head instead of a Grassy Gus caterpillar, you can totally make eyeballs popping out of his face and a nose popping out. You can stitch into the stocking to make indents where you would like a mouth to be. So I'm not going to keep it there, but just so that you older children know how to step up your project if you choose. All right, so I'm gonna quickly attempt to pull this out. You might need parent supervision with using the needle and thread, just because needles hurt, quite frankly, when they go into your skin. All right, looks like it's about out.
We've gotten a couple questions about how often these need to be watered and how they should water them.
Oh, I'm gonna talk about that in a couple of minutes, actually, once they're done. Can I wait till then, or would you like me to answer that now?
No, that's perfect, thank you.
All right, so that's pretty much out. So what I'm going to do now is, you should have some googly eyes in your box with the package. And I'm going to take the glue, and I'm just going to glue them onto the top of his head. What I learned, actually yesterday, is that when they are attacked by a little person, namely my 1-year-old daughter, the eyeballs fall off, so I did end up hot gluing them back on. All right, so I've got his eyes attached now, and I'm gonna just add some decorations. So what I wanna do is I wanna add some antennae coming out of his head and give him some feet. So I don't know about you, but I've got this really nice sparkly one I'm gonna use actually for his antenna. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, not all caterpillars have antennae, but I like to think they do. Now, it can be tricky when you're trying to put the pipe cleaner through the stocking. So, a trick I have figured out is if you gently pull the stocking apart, it makes the holes a lot bigger and easier for you to stick them through. So looking for a hole. Nice thing about it going into soil is that it's got a smaller chance of poking your finger or poking right through. Now, I know it can be tricky, but stick with it. Okay. All right, so I've got some antennae for him, and I've kind of shaped them a little bit. The nice thing about pipe cleaners is that you can shape them however you choose to. If you're doing like a Grassy Gus head, you can use the pipe cleaners to give them ears to use instead of for a mouth. You could even give them short little arms like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. That could be fun. Give them little legs. Now you should have a couple more pieces of pipe cleaner, and I'm going to use these for the legs of my caterpillar because, you know, they need to move around. I think of the story of the hungry little caterpillar and how he had to climb through all those different foods as he ate them. Okay, so all I did was I stuck it into the side of his head, or the side of his one body, and now I'm just going to bend it into shape, like so. Yeah. Might need to adjust when he's on the table. It might be easier to adjust actually. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Remember, it's a lot easier when you stretch out the nylon to push it in. Okay, and then I'm just gonna keep using my pipe cleaner here. I'm gonna give him 2 more legs. All right. I think that one's in. Feels like it. And on the other side, that one I know for sure is in. All right. Oh, it's hard to pick them up. Okay, so there's my caterpillar. All right. Now, my caterpillar, I'd rather not have a tail, so I'm just going to cut off the excess here. Now, you can continue adding lots and lots of detail. You can add more legs or whatever you choose to your caterpillar to decorate him and continue to help him grow. But I'm going to stop there and explain the next steps with your caterpillar. So I have a plate. I'm just going to put him on the plate. And I'm going to fill the plate with water because I want to be able to soak him. The very first time you water him, you're going to need to use quite a bit of water so that the soil gets good and wet. So you can see the water's already being soaked up into the caterpillar. You want the soil nice and wet so that the seeds will begin to germinate. Now, germinate means that they're going to start to grow the roots that they need to plant into the soil. And that will allow them to soak up the nutrients that you will find in your potting soil. You don't need to add nutrients.
Great. How much water would you say you should use, and maybe how often?
The first time you're going to need quite a bit of water, depending on your potting soil. If you used soil from your backyard, you might need more than if you used potting soil from a pot that you had, or a bag of potting soil like what I did. You'll be able to tell, here I'll show you. These ones are actually soaking up pretty well. So you're going to know that you've used enough soil the very first time when your caterpillar is completely black or dark. In that case, the soil has been moistened quite a bit. You can dump off the extra water. Every couple of days, you're going to notice, just to touch him, that he's going to feel dry. I have been watering my caterpillar that I've done every 2 days. So as he soaks up the soil or the water, he is going to allow the seeds to start to germinate. Now I'm just going to switch caterpillars here. So this one's actually, I'm supposed to water him today, but I haven't because now I can manipulate him and hold him. So after a couple of days, you're going to notice that the seeds are going to start to sprout and go every which way. The fun part is that you get to use scissors and trim the Grassy Gus however you want. Now, if you're doing a Grassy Gus head, you can cut funny patterns into his hair because all the seeds will be sprouting out the top. Because all the seeds are sprouting everywhere out of my body, my caterpillar's body, you can cut however you want. Maybe I'm going to cut one pattern in here, a different pattern here, or a different pattern here. But what I am going to do is I'm going to trim off this piece coming out of his nose. Just because I think it looked funny. Gives him a little bit more shape there, and maybe I'm going to cut down like a mohawk. Now, it should only take a couple of days for you to start seeing seeds. The really cool thing about grass seed, and I'm pretty sure wildflower seeds will do this as well, is that over time, there's going to be more of them. Grass in particular has something called runners, so underneath the ground, one strand of grass will actually have more little baby strands of grass coming up from underneath it, all attached to the same root, kind of like strawberry plants, where strawberries have those runners creating other little plants out of one big plant. Grass does the same thing, it just happens all underneath the ground. So then, yeah, like I said, water him every couple of days. You don't need as much water after the first time. Otherwise, the soil will get too wet and could go moldy. Doesn't happen often that I'll find that. Are there questions about Grassy Gus at this point?
Yeah, it looks like a couple people are asking where the video will be on the site. We're going to have a video of this activity on our Create Joy Activity Center. So we will send an email to your parents or guardians later today with a link to find the video. So keep your eye out for that, and then we'll share a link to the activity center every day as well. We have another camper wondering where we should keep it if we don't have a sunny window.
You don't actually need a sunny window. Any room in your house that has a window is fine, just as long as it's getting some natural light. So if your bedroom has a window, just put it on your dresser, kitchen table. I've had mine on my kitchen counter. It just needs to get a little bit of sunlight.
Cool. And we had another camper wondering how it grows through the stocking, which I have questions about too.
Excellent question. So because, like when I showed you how to insert the pipe cleaner, stockings are comprised of a ton of different little tiny holes. So if you look really closely at this one, you can see that this grass has pushed its way through the holes. It finds all those little holes and pushes its way through that. That's how it grows through. It just finds those little holes. Nature is quite amazing that way.
Cool, thank you. Can we keep it outside, or will it dry out?
It won't dry out if you continue to check it and water it every couple of days for sure. My main concern with keeping it outside would be that it might blow away. If your backyard's anything like mine, my backyard's pretty windy, so we have to be careful what we keep outside.
That's a fair point. Anyone else have any other questions? What if it rains? Like, what if you put it outside and it rains? Is that going to, like, will it be overwatered? Will it grow faster?
It depends on the kind of drainage you have. Because I have it sitting on a plate, any extra water will just sit in the plate and it will slowly absorb. If you have it sitting like on a lawn chair or something, it'll just naturally drain. If it is outside, then yeah, you probably don't need to water it as often. Just keep a close eye on it.
Great. Any other questions before Erica talks about some other activities? No, I don't see any other questions. If you think of them, throw them in the chat, and we'll ask Erica before she goes. We've still got about 10 minutes or so.
Okay, so I'll continue then. So, campers will have received a box full of different crafts and stuff that they can do. In the box, there is a brochure that does have instructions for most of them. Also, a $10 gift certificate. So if you log on to our website, curiosityboxkids.com, there are tons of different packages or boxes that you can buy. Some are themed boxes. I think there's a unicorn box and an outer space box and a dinosaur box. Lots of different things. There are also subscriptions that you can purchase. So like a 3-month subscription, a 6-month, and I think there's a 12-month as well. But what I'm doing is I'm reaching into the bottom of the box and I have pulled out these papers and the yarn. So another craft in there is the yarn craft. You can use the yarn to create a different textured kind of artwork. So there are some more simpler ones to practice on, and I would strongly recommend practicing because this can be a very tricky one sometimes if you're not used to it. My favorite one, because of just of the effect it makes, is this one. So what you need for this is you'll need the yarn bundle that you have, and you're going to need the glue. Now, you are probably going to get a little bit messy with this. I'm not going to lie to you. Your fingers might get a little bit sticky. So you're going to start with a piece of thread. Now, people do it different ways. I've seen it different ways. I'm going to attempt to do this standing up horizontally. And what you're going to do is you're going to kind of pick a spot you want to start, and you're going to put glue on it. Now, if you're doing something like the tree, like I showed you earlier, you might want to cut out the picture of the tree a little bit first, and then work on top of like the box or on top of another paper, just so that you don't glue yourself to the table. Now I'm spreading the glue around because it kind of came out in a big blob. So I don't know if you can see it, but there's a big glob of glue. And I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to pick a starting spot. And I'm going to kind of smush the yarn along the lines. I like this craft because of it makes a really cool effect when you use multiple colors. Now, do you have to use the templates that we provide you with? No, not at all. You can make whatever design or pattern you want. I've seen these crafts, actually I've done these crafts in my classroom, and I've had them recreate scenes from a story, do their favorite landscape, all kinds of different things. So I'm just going to keep going along the line.
We have one question about this yarn activity.
Yes.
Do we need liquid glue to do this, or can we use a glue stick?
I would recommend liquid glue, and it comes in the box.
Oh, great. That's great.
Yep, you should have liquid glue in your box. So I'm going to add another color. Oh, there's the end.
Will yarn be in the box as well?
Yes.
Great. It looks like we've had a few other questions about Grassy Gus, and that looks great.
Yeah. So then the cool thing is it stands out. It's got a great texture.
Great. Yeah, it looks cute. It's beautiful. We have a couple more questions about Grassy Gus that have come in since you started working on the yarn craft.
Okay.
If you do flowers, because they're bigger than grass, can you talk about how they'll grow through the stocking?
The same way. When flowers do start shooting up, they are small pieces like grass. There's actually some clovers growing in here, and those are a little bit thicker than grass. So they'll grow through the same way. They'll just find any open hole and make it bigger as they need it.
That's awesome. It seems like there are a few campers worried about not being great at plants.
Oh.
I also am not great with plants, so if you have any tips at all on how to just successfully grow plants in general, that would be great.
Well, my full disclosure here, my husband says that I'm great at killing plants, so I'm not allowed to have a lot of plants in the house. This is actually the only thing that I am able to keep alive, because grass does not need a whole lot of care, and it does really well when you just let it do its own thing. You just have to make sure you add water and that it has some sunlight.
Great. Well, that's encouraging for those of us who are not good with plants. Can some people draw on the stocking, or would that be bad?
You can draw on it. I would recommend using like markers or something, as long as you're not intending to eat what's inside of your Grassy Gus, then there should not be too much of an issue.
Great. That's very good to know. So decorate all you want, as long as you're not growing anything that you can eat.
Mm-hmm.
And is there any risk of him falling apart? Looks like some people are concerned about him breaking.
Because he's actually only one stocking that you've just tied into different pieces, I've never had an issue with them breaking or falling apart. But there's always the exceptions to the rules, right? So just because I don't see it happening, but...
Okay, any other questions, you guys? Looks like we don't have any questions right now. So if you wanted to continue with your yarn activity, or if there's anything else you would like to cover, Erica?
I'm actually going to continue with the yarn. Just showing you how to add on to another line. I'm going to use another thread. I would recommend, to avoid the mess that I have just created, separating your color thread before you do it, before you try and pull it apart. It's all wrapped up in it. It should all be wrapped up in a nice little ball in your box. So for this one, you just kind of keep trimming the yarn as you go to the size that you want. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to doing one of the circles beside. Now my finger still has glue, so I gotta just be careful here. And I'm just gonna spread it all around. And trim where I need it to stop. And I'll show you in a second, just because I'm doing a lot of trimming, it's easier for me to do it flat. I will lift it up in 1 second here. All right, so you can see on the circle here that it's kind of got these little spots where it ends so that it looks like it's going underneath the circle on top. So all I've done is cut the strings short, and I did that, just placed the thread on the glue and then used my scissor, got up nice and tight. And then I did a round. So then I'm going to go back on, I'm going to use more colors. And once this is all full, you'll have a really cool effect. Similar to that of, where did I put it? This tree. Now, when you're doing the tree, do you have to go in straight lines like I've done here? Absolutely not. You can make a really, really cool effect by doing swirls, like really, really tight swirls. So like that blue and red one that I've done, except just keep the strings really, really close together. You can do zigzags, you can really do anything that you want because it is so flexible and versatile. You don't need to worry about the string not fitting properly because you can totally move it and manipulate it any way that you choose. So yeah, there's a few other different patterns. There's a camper coming out of a tent. There's the swirls. There's another one in here that I saw. There's the feather one. There's a parrot. Now the feather one might be for those younger children out there where you can color and decorate the feather instead of filling it with yarn. And then put yarn going down the center so that just like a real feather, you have a raised center where the bone would actually be on your bird or on the.
That's great. We need to wrap up, I think. Some
Okay.
campers need to go. But we really enjoyed this, Erica. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me. It's been exciting.
I think everybody got a lot out of it. And for those of you asking where to send pictures of your Grassy Gus, you can email them to us at campfun@grassy.com.